Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to share my thoughts on the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Now these were sent to me by Wizards of the Coast, so I want to be transparent about that. However, as is always the case with anything that's sent to me, they are not scripting or pre-screening the video. They're not demanding I review it in a certain way or anything like that. The opinions that I express in this video are 100% completely and totally my own. I also have a copy of the Dungeon Master's Guide that I pre-ordered way back in the day from 401 Games, so this was a book that I was going to be purchasing regardless of whether it was sent to me or not. So I just want to make that very clear here. Now they did send me both versions of the DMG, so the Game Store exclusive cover as well as the standard retail cover. And this is kind of an interesting case because the Game Store exclusive cover here, you've got Lolth wrapping up a victim there, and on the back it just has the 50th anniversary logo there and some like filigree floral patterns there for like the gold leaf or lettering, whatever you want to call it. And of the three core books for the 2024 release of 5th edition, this is probably my least favorite of the Game Store exclusive covers. But the retail version of the covers is probably my favorite version of all three of the core rulebooks. So we've got the Game Store exclusive being sort of the one I'm the least enthralled with when it comes to the artwork and design of it. But then we've got the standard cover, which is, again, hands down my favorite of the three core books here, because you've got Venger on there for the D&D animated series, which gets a lot of love and attention in this book, which I think is great. But we've also got Warduke on the cover there. And then we got Skyla, I think is her name, and a bunch of just undead that have amassed to create problems for our player characters. And then we just have sort of like a dungeon location on the back here. This retails for $49.99 US. Now, this also comes with this map here, which is a double-sided map which has the world of Greyhawk, or at least the northern section of the world of Greyhawk on the one side, and then on the other side we've got the city of Greyhawk in all of its glory. I'm just going to use the world map here as the backdrop for this video, but there's some really cool stuff. We do have the Cairn Hills here, where and you got like the Mistmarsh showing down here, although it's not labeled on this map, but this is where the Age of Worms adventure path started. You've got the Bandit Kingdoms, you got the Rift Canyon here as well, which is again a big location found in the Age of Worms Adventure Pass. So the Bandit Kingdoms, like that was where Alhastra was. So it's kind of cool to see some Age of Worms related stuff on here, because that did become set in the Greyhawk setting within the pages of the magazine eventually. But for like the first half of the releases, it was generic with, like, for example, when they went to Greyhawk, instead of going to the Free City of Greyhawk, it was simply referred to as the Free City. I don't know why they put it in Greyhawk, like why they didn't do it right away, but it's still kind of, again, cool to see. But you've also got things like Moor Castle, the Ghost Tower of Inverness here. You've got Castle Greyhawk there. You've got the Barrier Peaks. So you got some really cool adventure locations as well from different products that do get referenced in this Dungeon Master Guide. So again, we're not going to go through and flip through every single page here, but we do have some really cool artwork on the inside as well, with the Black Dragon attacking what looks like a keep there with some siege weapons. So that's really, really cool to see. As far as the DMG itself goes, this one reminds me a lot of the 4th edition Dungeon Master's Guide, because this has a lot of really great information for beginning DMs, or even just returning DMs or experienced DMs, like some stuff to kind of brush up on, or sort of to sort of reacquaint themselves with when it comes to running games. But there's some great stuff here. For example, the DM's Toolkit has information on creating backgrounds, creating creatures, magic items, things like dressing out dungeons. So you got like different types of doors and how to implement them, dungeon types, environmental effects. For running the game, you've got things like how to identify different player types and how to engage them at the table. So there's some really cool stuff in here, some things to have or with you when you're getting ready to run your games. Again, how to run a session, some really cool information here, and again, just a good focus on information for beginner DMs on how to actually dungeon master a game, how to design or come up with adventure ideas, how to come up with campaign ideas, and just how to run sessions on, as you sort of go through. There's a great example of play, which we do see in a lot of different ones here. But we got, again, information on like play styles, hack and slash, all ages, gritty or cinematic, serious or silly, pre-planned or improvised. So it gives you some things to think about when you are creating when you're looking at ready to run your games. Implementation of house rules, what to sort of keep in mind with that. Learning by observing. So there's just, again, some really cool information here for the DM to experience or to keep in mind when it comes to like their players. Do you hide roles? Do you keep them out in the open? Do you have things like, how do you deal with different like player types, character knowledge versus player knowledge, all kinds of really cool stuff in here. So yeah, a really good sort of base of information for your players to have. Also included in here is probably one of my favorite ways of creating encounters that we didn't like, that they sort of had in the 2014 version of the Dungeon Master's Guide, but that they did a much better job of here, if I can find it quickly. Adventures. Here we go. So it has, again, a really logical and simple XP budget system for creating encounters. The original 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide started with this, but then had this convoluted thing of having a multiplier for the XP cost from the budget for the amount of creatures that you have in there, rather than just having each creature be worth its own XP value towards the budget, which is the way that it should be. So with this one, for example, if you are a first level group of characters and the Dungeon Master is looking to set an encounter for you, you choose the encounter difficulty, low, moderate, or high. So let's just say we go with a low difficulty encounter. So you get an XP value of 50 for a level 1 party or level 1 character, and then you multiply that 50 by the number of players in the group. So the example that they give here is that you've got 4 players in your campaign. So you've got XP of 50 because you want to create a low difficulty encounter for level 1 creatures. So you get 50 experience per character. There's 4 characters in the party, so you get 200 experience points. And these are some things that you can do with that. So, for example, you've got a single bugbear warrior that's going to be worth 200 experience points on his own, or 2 giant wasps, which are worth 100 XP each for 200 total, or 6 twig blights, which are 125 experience points, or 25 experience points for 150 total, because there's 6 of them. So you don't have to necessarily spend the whole value, but it's still so much simpler than what we had before. So it's just, I don't know why they tried to convolute it by having you have a modifier for creatures if there's multiples of them to take more from the XP budget than they would actually be worth giving to the players. It was just such a baffling, unnecessary step that they added. But yeah, this is just such a simple, clean, and effective way of building encounters. And because you're not inflating a creature's value because there's multiples of them, I think that's going to help somewhat with 5th edition's issue of having encounters feel way too simple or way too easy for the players, which is something that I've encountered a ton in my years of running 5th edition, to the point where I would basically modify every single encounter to make the enemies have more staying power so that the fights last longer, the players have to use more of their resources or have potentially take more damage as the encounters go on. So I think this will help with that somewhat. I don't think it's going to fully solve the issue. We'll take a look when the Monster Manual comes out about how that might affect things, but this is a much better encounter building system. Also included in this campaign, or in this Dungeon Master's Guide, is a campaign setting. So you've got Greyhawk here. So this does focus a bit on the city of Greyhawk, but you do get some really cool ideas for adventures and campaigns. Things like, campaigns involving like chromatic dragons being a threat, the goals of them, how to incorporate that into the various tiers of play, the elemental evil as another sort of storyline idea. You've also got the Greyhawk setting itself. And yeah, you get some really cool information included in here. You've got the different gods included. You've got the city overview. You've got the city map, which I already showed. Has like the fold outside as well. You've got some decent information about the city itself, and then you got the surrounding environment, which does have Diamond Lake and Blackwall Keep there from the Age of Worms adventure path, so I kind of geeked out a little bit overseeing that in there. But yeah, you get a pretty decent amount of information. You've also got, for the surrounding environments, again, you've got this map here, but you also have examples of like locations, and then there are some examples of like adventures. So you could have, for example, like the Barrier Peaks, the Hell Furnaces, different areas of interest to explore there as well. It's not a comprehensive campaign setting by any degree here, but it does give you enough information that you can run a story that feels like it's set in that world, but you still have plenty of leeway to sort of make it your own there. So there's some cool stuff for that. There's also some great planar stuff in here as well. So you've got the different planes of existence, the different, like the material plane, you've got the lower planes, the upper planes. So some really cool stuff in there as well. And of course, our good old handy dandy magic items, which does include a lot of the magic items from the Dungeons and Dragons animated series, as well as just a lot more artwork for the magic items in general than what we had in the DMG there. So we got all kinds of cloaks. We've got the different cubes there, the Instant Fortress. We've got some armor and stuff here as well. We've got Hank with his energy bow from the D&D cartoon series. So that's really cool to see. We have you got like the extending pole as well. You got the hat of many spells included in here. So you get some really cool inclusions for the D&D animated series as well, which I've always been a big fan of. And some really good magic item tables. And then we got the Bastion system. So for the Bastions, this is like the stronghold, the equivalent of like having a stronghold in old school D&D, or potentially 3rd edition if you bought that book and actually used it in your campaign. But the overall premise is that when the players reach around level 5, they can either find, inherit, or purchase some sort of structure. It could be like a building within the city. It could be like in the Waterdeep Dragon Heist, for example, the players inherit a tavern that they becomes their own, and they can fix it up and do stuff with it. Well, this gives you a formalized set of rules for that, but you can also expand that out. So instead of it just being a single building, it might build up to a fortress, or it could even go into eventually being like an entire settlement. So there's rules for adding things like specialty areas, like alchemist workshops, smithies and things like that. And it's just a great way for the players to create their base of operation, attract followers, sort of create this sense of community for the NPCs in the group or in the campaign, and it gives you something to do with their gold pieces, which I think can be a really handy thing, because you can earn a lot of gold potentially and not have a lot to do with it in 5e, so this is a really cool way to do that. Now, if you're going to implement Bastions into your campaign, one of the things that I would recommend is early on is sort of set the stage by introducing unique NPCs. So the players, when they're at the lower levels, for example, they might start, going to this alchemist shop to purchase potions and, alchemist fire and things along those lines. And they can build this relationship with this alchemist who, when they create their own Bastion and put in like an alchemist lab, for example, then they might eventually convince that alchemist, or that alchemist may wish to live within that Bastion and help serve the player characters because of their strong relationships. Same thing with a smithy, or like even a shopkeeper, things along those lines. So I think that's a really cool way to integrate NPCs into the Bastions by introducing them early, letting the players sort of develop that relationship with them. And I just think it's a really cool inclusion in the game. I always like the idea of the players having a base of operations and expanding on it. I recently did a Dragon Horde video, not Dragon Horde video, sorry, a Worm Food video. The very first Worm Food was all about the players finding this house that they can purchase or that they can just simply, claim ownership of, and how they could fix it up. And like that's something that, is kind of expanded upon and creating like this Bastion system. So I've always liked the idea. And if you're gonna use this, then you want to keep the adventure, the campaign, relatively close to where the Bastion is. Because one of the biggest problems with that Worm Food article was that the players found this house they could spend a lot of money on and fix up, but then 90% of the campaign takes place far away from that location. So if you're going to use Bastions, like I said, set up the NPCs early that you want to have the players sort of win over or have, become part of the Bastion itself, and keep the campaign sort of close to where that Bastion is, so that's always got sort of a base of operations for the players. And if they do have to leave and go kind of far away from it, then it creates a situation where when they come back, somebody may have tried to take it over and the players have to reclaim it. So you can create stories and stuff like that from there as well. Another cool inclusion is this list of like important NPCs or locations or terms from D&D's history here, with one of my favorites being the fact that they have this really cool artwork for Caius that's really just maggoty and gross. I kind of wish the worms were green because Caius worms are traditionally green, but still really cool to have nonetheless. And then at the back of the book, we've got a whole bunch of maps here, just generic maps that you can use as inspiration or just pull directly for use in your campaigns as well. So some really, really cool stuff in here. So the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide is, in my opinion, one of the best DMGs that's come out for the D&D game. It reminds me a lot of the 4th edition one, which I do consider to be one of the best DMGs for teaching beginners or helping DMs run their games more smoothly by like doing things simple like knowing the player type. So you might have the power gamer, like how do you engage the power gamer to be present, and sort of like following what's going on and give them their moments to shine. Or a player that's like has the theater background and is an actor and wants to role play everything out and have these dramatic scenes. Like how do you engage them while not having them take over the game? So the 4th edition DMG might be the best one that I've ever seen come out, but this one is very close to that, and I definitely would recommend it if you're looking to run D&D 5th edition, because there's just so much useful tools in here. There's great improvisational information. There's great like clarifications on encounters and how to like run them rules wise, like cover and line of sight and line of effect. And it's just again, creating adventures, creating campaigns, the tools that you need to do that. This is a really, really good DMG for that. There's also all kinds of tracker sheets in here as well, right, that you can use. You don't have to use them, but you certainly can use them. There was one here for NPCs, which I'm not going to find and look at in this video here, but there is one for NPCs where it gives you like their personality traits and all that stuff, but it also has a section for secrets. And one thing that a buddy of mine mentioned yesterday when I was talking to him that I definitely fully agree with is that if you are a beginner, the one thing is that they don't really tell you that you shouldn't be using that tracker sheet for every single NPC. So again, if you're a beginner and you pick up this book, there's a lot of great stuff in here, but when you reach that NPC tracker sheet, if you decide to use it, keep it for your major NPCs, right? Like not every stable boy or bartender or shopkeep is going to have this like major secret that they're holding on to. If everybody has a secret, then secrets kind of become more or less like meaningless. But you could incorporate like some cool ideas, like for example, maybe the village priest, who is a senior citizen now, but maybe in their younger years were devil worshippers, or they summoned a devil and made a pact with it that they regretted later on and sort of tried to dedicate their lives to the worship of these, righteous deities, hoping that that might save their soul, only that it's not going to, and that the players might get tangled up in this, or that pact that they made might come back to haunt them in different ways that the characters will have to take care of, and just sort of things like that. But you don't need it for the bartender, right? The bartender could just be a bartender, right? Or he could be a retired adventurer. Or he could just, again, be an average citizen. But like I said, there's so many really useful tools in here, some really great advice in here, and I would say that this is one of the better Dungeon Master's guides that have been put out there. And for the love of goodness, they finally fixed the encounter building system to make it super easy, super intuitive, and straightforward, and just work, right? I'm really happy that they made that change. The Greyhawk integration is really cool. The callbacks to the D&D animated series are great. The included maps in the back, just a series of maps that you can pull out and use, or sort of use as inspiration when you create your own. It's just a really solid Dungeon Master's Guide overall, and something that I would definitely recommend checking out, and hopefully people sort of give this one a chance, because even though I was running the 2014 version of D&D, I would probably still use this DMG instead, because I really like this one. Anyway, let me know in the comments below, what is your all-time favorite Dungeon Master's Guide, without getting into edition wars, because there's no place for that on this channel. But what is your favorite DMG? What's your favorite piece of advice that you ever learned from a DMG? What's your favorite magic item that you've ever pulled out of a DMG? Let me know that in the comments below. Anyway, thank you once again for watching this video. It means the world to me. Every single view means a lot. I really appreciate people taking time out of their day to watch something that I worked on or that I made. It really does mean a lot. Thank you to Wizards of the Coast again for sending this my way. And thank you all again for your time. It really does mean the world to me. So until next time, take care.